The White House continues to tell its top officials to not testify in the impeachment probe.
Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick joining us now to explain the risk in that decision. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning.
This seems to be taking so many people by surprise because, as far as I'm concerned, I used to think that when you have these hearings for whatever it may be, if you get subpoenaed by Congress, you show up.
Right.
Apparently, you can just say no.
Well,
didn't know that.
That's right. So a subpoena is not an invitation to appear. It's an order to appear. However, having said that, there's also a political ramification as opposed to a legal ramification that people are talking about. So legally, if you disobey a court order, you can be arrested. There's a punishment. There's a penalty. You can be jailed. But politically, how would that look? Can you even imagine if the Democrats or the Republicans, whoever's doing the subpoenaing, were to take advantage of that option? Moving forward, first of all, the subpoenas are always challenged, and then you're tied up in a court battle, which will probably stretch past the election in 2020. So there's really practical considerations in deciding, do you really want to go through the exercise of trying to enforce a subpoena? Wouldn't it be easier to do, as they're doing this week, simply moving forward with the impeachment? Let's call it a process, since it's more of an inquiry. We're moving from fact witnesses to expert witnesses this week.
And if you're looking at optics, because it's really in the court of public opinion at this point, you send the subpoena, and if they don't show up, well, that's what it looks like to the public, and let the American people decide.
You know, that's right. And as far as letting the American people decide, you know, we do elections, so it should be the voters at the ballot box, not the Senate sitting as the jury. And speaking of presidents headed towards impeachment, last night I had the opportunity to go to the Nixon Library tree lighting with my sister, also a lawyer. And if that crowd was any indication of what can happen when you look and focus on somebody's policies as opposed to this impeachment proceeding, the president's policies, President Trump's policies, are very popular. People care a lot about money in their pocket. They care a lot about going back to work, jobs, prescription drug prices, all the kinds of things that maybe are more important to the voters than following these impeachment proceedings. So I'm glad you brought that up, Rule. That's a big concern. You don't want to now start jailing witnesses for not appearing during a process that some Americans don't think is legitimate to begin with.
And that will happen if they don't show up, if they're subpoenaed?
Well, it could potentially happen, but that was just my point. How would that look as a practical matter to actually have Democrats seeking to enforce subpoenas, even if witnesses are being disrespectful and not abiding by them?
Seems like we're watching a show play out before us, because Adam Schiff invites, is that the right word, President Trump to sit in on the House Intelligence Committee. There's no chance that's going to happen.
No.
So are they just going through the motions? Are they just, how would you describe the back and forth here?
I would describe it as unprecedented in the sense that this administration is unique in terms of the way it handles conflict and controversy. So what you've seen in the last couple of weeks, we've never seen, even with the few presidents that have been marched towards impeachment, whether it actually occurred or not. So what's happening this week, and the reason the White House lawyers are not going to participate, is it's going to be a panel of experts talking about legal analysis. So that's interesting to me, and obviously to the two of you. I mean, you're going to have 4 constitutional scholars analyzing what may or may not constitute high crimes or misdemeanors, but they're going to send a White House lawyer in there to make it not a discussion but a debate. Actually, 4 people that smart, it's probably going to be a debate anyway. But it's not a testimony taking hearing for which the president needs representation. He may be in NATO, obviously the lawyers could go, but to what end? What does he have to gain by, and that's part of the reason that that's not going to happen this week.
What else are we going to see this week?
Well, this week we're going to see that discussion continue, and we're going to see some decisions being made by the Democrats as to how are they going to proceed. Now, here's why that's interesting, and my guess is I'll be back on talking about this maybe next week or another time. Is it possible that Democrats at this stage could back off impeachment and say censure is appropriate? Wouldn't that be something?
That was talked about last week.
It's talked about last week.
Censure.
It's actually been talked about even this week. And even Nancy Pelosi is not as vocal as others have expected she would be at this point on using the I word, impeachment.
What would censure of the president mean compared to impeachment? And would it just be a we're watching you slap on the wrist.
Well, that would be the criticism, is it wouldn't be serious enough, and it would almost seem like the Democrats are backing away. But if you look at the polling numbers in terms of what do Americans think about this process, they haven't changed. And I know polls, it depends on which one you read, but they may decide it's not worth it. It's not worth losing their constituencies to pursue impeachment. Maybe they think censure is appropriate. Wouldn't that be interesting?
This is what Nancy Pelosi was concerned about going into this election year, where her focus was get a Democrat in the White House and not deal with this. And now this is exactly what they're dealing with.
That's why she was dragging her feet. Exactly right.
Oh boy. Wendy Patrick. Oh, you'll be back next week talking about one of the 1,200 things going on. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate it. Coming up.